Hey everyone, welcome to the Leader's Edge. I'm your host, Steve Steele, where we dive into insights and principles that will supercharge your leadership and ignite your personal growth. And whether you're a budding entrepreneur, a leader navigating change, or a seasoned pro, this show's for you. Each episode is packed with practical strategies designed to elevate your mindset and amplify your leadership impact. So get ready for some actionable tips that you can put into practice immediately. And a huge shout out to all of our amazing listeners. Thank you for your unwavering support. So let's get started and unlock your true potential. My guest today is an innovative AI integration strategist and the mastermind behind the organic delegation framework, a transformative methodology rooted in a straightforward yet impactful idea. The very skills that define exceptional leadership are the same skills that empower individuals to excel in the realm of artificial intelligence. With a deep understanding of the intersection between human capabilities and technology, James has discovered and dedicated his career to helping organizations navigate their complexities of integrating AI into their operations. As a key member of a passionate team at Speak to Lead, James goes beyond traditional discussions about technology. He explores the nuanced dynamics of communication, effective delegation, and authentic human connection, emphasizing that these elements are crucial for unlocking the full potential of AI in any business. Through engaging conversations and practical insights, he aims to empower leaders to embrace AI not just as a tool, but as a partner in driving innovation and efficiency. So everyone, welcome from the green room, James Hammer.
Hey Steve.
Jay, there he is.
How's it going?
Good.
Hey, so glad to be here, man. It seems like, we've worked together over the last few weeks and really enjoyed that process. And so this feels like just kind of a culmination moment of everything we've been doing the past month or so. So very excited to be here with you.
I am too. And James, you were on the show before. We had you back a couple of months ago with the Speak the Lead team, and we kind of dove into AI a little bit and kind of shared a little bit of what was going on. But today I want to get into really the nuts and bolts of it and even maybe discuss some of the projects that you and I are working on together. So if we have the time for that, we'll dive into that. But first of all, James, I want our people our viewers to really get to know who you are and how you started in this whole practice. Now, I know about you, but they don't know about you.
Right,
so kind of start from the beginning and kind of tell us what you're doing and how you got into all this.
Yeah, absolutely. This next year, I'll be a quarter-century veteran educator, so this next year will mark 25 years for me in the classroom, and I'm pretty excited about that. I hadn't anticipated to still be in the classroom at this point, but I got an invitation to come back, and the idea of being able to use these AI tools and all the processes and things I've developed now in the classroom for that that holy grail of differentiated education was too much of a temptation to pass up. So I ended up back in the classroom. But essentially, as I was looking at pivoting out of the classroom a few years ago in the spring of 23, I was trying to figure out, what are my options? Where would I go as a person who's taught theater for more than 2 decades? What are my options? And initially, I looked at kind of creative director opportunities and things like that. But I had a friend who said to me, well, what do you know about AI? And as any good creative person, I was like, well, let it do my dishes and clean my toilet and leave all the fun creative stuff to me. But he said, well, check it out. I got into a course, an AI for Learning course in the spring of 23 from the Digital Learning Institute in Dublin, Ireland. I took that course remotely. And sitting in the very first session of that class, I was like, man, this is going to change everything, was the first thing that I thought. And the second thing I thought was, why aren't people having more conversations about this from the perspective of national security? Because these tools are going to have implications far and wide for all of us in terms of our security and our safety and our awareness of the world around us, and being able to differentiate truth from reality, truth from what's false from reality in those senses. So it's going to be crazy. In fact, my son is developing a a course that helps people understand synthetic media. But anyway, so I got into that space and I was like, wow, these are amazing tools. They're going to do amazing things. The first place I stepped was obviously as an educator, curriculum development. So how can you develop curriculum very quickly using these tools? I had some initial really great successes. And so just kind of continued to build on that. We were starting initially with educational tools, but then realized very quickly we wanted to pivot to actual industrial opportunities and actually opportunities to work and help business leaders improve what they were doing in their processes and protocols. And when we realized that we could do that, we said, all right, let's launch. We started online and started talking in online spaces, but there's so much noise in the market right now. People have a really hard time wrapping their heads around what these tools really are and what they can really do. And ultimately, I realized that really our value in Mental Forge Media and Mental Forge AI is in helping people understand clarity of function with these tools. So we work in every process we potentially can to help people understand. First of all, it's not that robot. It's not that in Terminator, all those kind of things. Yeah, it's not that.
That's
We have
my
a
first
very
impression.
firm understanding, right? That's our first impression when we come to AI, but it's not that robot yet, and that we would be able to do some pretty remarkable things, and that identified last summer really the idea of the organic delegation framework, the fact that we already possess these skills to delegate work to other people, but how we delegate to other people is essentially the same way we delegate to AI. And so that just kind of hit. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's a really kind of a breakthrough discovery. And as I've talked to people over the last year, Steve, about how to use AI, how to approach the tools, we essentially teach artificial intelligence, not from software or a technical perspective, but from transferable skills. You already have the skills to do this. And so that's where we really are, is launching into that space, helping businesses understand it's not that big of an adoption challenge to do all this. You have to do it while your business is running. And we sort of navigate businesses through that experience in real time. And so that's how we kind of ended up to where we are today.
Okay. So James, if you mentioned tools, so we already have the tools to use AI. Okay. But
right.
As I'm thinking it from just a plain person who's really never used it much, of course, I have used it a lot since when we've met and different things like that.
A lot more since we started talking, right?
Yeah. But but what kind of tools are you talking about? I mean, if I have the tools, what tools do I have that I already have that I can use AI with?
Right. And I think really, honestly, Steve, that's the biggest challenge for people is we know we delegate all the time. We know it's a common practice, especially if you're a business leader. Oh my gosh, if you're a business leader, you've probably delegated half a dozen times before lunch, for crying out loud. Mm-hmm. And so ultimately, we delegate all the time, but do we really know what we're doing when we delegate? And so we have the intuitive delegation process with the organic intelligence, which is essentially what the organic framework, delegation framework developed out of. It's the organic process for us. First, we have the impulse phase, where essentially we figure out, okay, I have an impulse. I need to do this job. Is it a job that I will do myself, or is it a job that I will delegate to someone else? So that's the essential thing. And the decision point is, you take action personally or you delegate. Those are your two choices in that space. And then we have the engagement phase. And this is when you're delegating. You provide context. You say, here's what we're trying to accomplish. You explain the specific task. I need you to do ... whatever it is. You explain the task, and then you check for understanding. You say, is this making sense? Do you understand what I'm asking you to do? And this is when we're working with human collaborators. These are the processes that we use. And then we essentially have iterative clarification, where as we go back and forth in the dialogue and I see a little bit of the work and I give you feedback and you go back and work on it and then you show me again. That's called iterative feedback. So every iteration of what you're doing, I see something and I say, hey, this is great, or hey, this needs to be changed, or let's modify this, or this is actually what we're looking for. So I'm guiding the whole process as we go along, and that's the engagement phase. And then you have the supervision phase, where essentially you step away. You've given the job, you've given the context, you've left it with your human counterpart, your employee, your assistant, or whatever, and then you step away, but you maintain that availability. Hey, if you have any questions, you know where to find me. And then you let the individual work. You maybe do check-ins during the process. How's it going? Any questions? You have course correction if you need it. Like I said, you say, hey, we want to actually, that's not what I had in mind. We want to go this direction. And then again, that reinforcement of good progress. Hey, this is great. This looks really great. We want to shore up this over here a little bit because this is more what we're looking for. But ultimately, that's that supervision phase where you're providing that supervision through the process. And then finally, you have the evaluation phase where you have your assessment of the output against the expectations. You give feedback for improvement. And ultimately, you integrate the output that you've been given into the larger picture. And those are the skills that we already have embedded in our experience. We talk to people, we share the context, we step away, we give them time to work, we step in and step out as a supervisor, just making sure that the work is progressing, and then we do the final evaluation. So we have all these skills embedded in us as leaders when we're working with other people constantly. So that's why we call it the organic delegation framework, because this is how we organically delegate to other organic beings in the process. So those skills that we already have, we just transfer them to the machine.
Okay, I was going to say, do you essentially talk to the machine like you would another human being?
Right. That's what I talk about a lot of times because people hear prompting or prompt engineering, and all of a sudden, all this technical stuff comes into their brain.
Yeah.
Oh, I have to do this.
I was telling you that the other day. The other day, I was telling you, I want you to write some prompts for me so I know what to ask it. But if I ask it as I would a person that I would be delegating something to, then that changes the dynamic a little bit, right?
100%. I tell people all the time, you've been using your words to get what you want out of other people your whole life. I mean, that's what from the time you were a baby, you develop the schema, you understand, oh, crying brings someone. If I'm uncomfortable, I cry, someone comes. So our whole life is built on this schema of using our words to get what we need out of those around us. You just apply this then to artificial intelligence. So when people talk about prompt engineering and the technicality of prompt engineering, I just say, look, you've been doing this your whole life. It's called conversation, and you're pretty good at it, especially if you're a business leader. So you just take those skills that you have as a conversationalist and as a leader, and rather than standing face to face with someone, you're standing face to face with a screen, with a tool like Claude or ChatGPT or Copilot or Gemini, and you're having that conversation in that space, in that chat box, rather than a live verbal back and forth. Although some of the tools like Claude, which is my favorite tool, has that verbal thing where I can literally have a conversation with Claude. I can prompt him casually as if I'm on the phone with him. He'll have, and I anthropomorphize all the time. So I say he, and most of the times I try to refer to it as it because people get a little weirded out about that. But I go back and forth. I anthropomorphize all the time. So it, the tool, whatever, you can go back and forth in that conversation. So they've tried to make it as much about that conversational piece as they potentially can in some of this software and stuff. But it's literally just having a conversation with an artificial intelligence, the same way you have conversations with organic intelligence all the time.
Okay, so James, I want you to unpack this a little bit more for me in this respect. We've talked about leaders, right? We've said that leaders are delegate. Why is it so important for leaders to understand the nuances, the workability, what AI can actually do for them? Why is that important for them?
Well, in the first paper that I published, it talks about cognitive adaptation through AI collaboration. And essentially, collaborating with AI accelerates your timeline. My initial set of data that I did an 8-month set of data and then another 7-month set of data. So I've got about 18 months, 16 months, something like that, 15 months of data that I have sort of extrapolated from all of my work with these tools. I went into every chat and I said, where did we start? What did we accomplish? Essentially, then how long would it have taken me to accomplish these things without artificial intelligence? So my first, my first 8 months, for example, my first 8 months, I did, based on what the tool calculated, I did a 1.5 years worth of work in those first 8 months, based on the artifacts I created, the deliverables that came up, all of the projects that I worked on, everything that I did. The tool essentially timed it out to be about a 1.5 years worth of work in 8 months.
Wow.
Who doesn't want an absolute acceleration of their timeline where they can spend less time doing their work and more time doing the things that they really got into the job for. Nobody became a nurse to do paperwork. You became a nurse to care about people, to care for people.
Right, right,
So,
right.
these tools take things like, paperwork in the medical field, or paperwork in the insurance field, or paperwork in the banking field, and reduce drastically the amount of time that an individual banker or doctor or nurse or whatever the case might be, any time that they spend in that repeatable sort of monotonous paperwork loop that they end up doing. There are tools that are being developed that do all that stuff just immediately, so that the people in those positions can spend more time caring for patients, talking to their customers, building client relationships. So essentially, it accelerates a lot of the things that are the monotonous, repeatable tasks that we have to do commonly every single day. You can automate so many of those. Even in your email, you can automate email responses. An email comes in from a client. You create essentially a protocol that says, if the email's like this, I want the response to sound like this. And you can do all that stuff automatically now. And so it takes a lot of the load, of that cognitive load of the interface of a lot of those pieces off of your plate, where you can sort of automate them and then just come back and check on them all the time. But don't forget to come back and check on them,
Right.
because AI is no good without you, ultimately.
That's right. And so time is a big thing. I mean, it accelerates our time, right? But also,
Right.
James, the quality of work that's put out there. I'm not, there's some things that I've written with AI. I would never. That is so good. Right? I mean,
Right. That's essentially, a lot of the things that people try to scapegoat AI with is, well, the quality of your work will diminish significantly.
yeah.
One experience I had was I built a 7-module Theater 101 course for elementary school students. I teach high school, but essentially I was building this curriculum for a small platform that I was working for at the time. So I created 7 modules, 85 artifacts altogether. 21 of them were videos, and how cumbersome video creation is. Shooting video, editing video, all those kind of things, weeks and weeks of work there by itself. Essentially, I created the entire 7-module course with all 85 of those artifacts, 21 of them being video, in 4 weeks. 4 weeks.
Jeez.
And then I took it to the platform and I showed it to them, shared it with them, and they said, can you teach all of our other teachers to do this way? Because this is the quality of the work that we want in every course that we have. And of course, I was like, absolutely, I can share whatever resources and skills that I can. So the fable that AI diminishes the quality of your work is absolutely that. It is a myth. It is something that the people who really, and now if you're using AI and you're taking the first prompt, absolutely you're diminishing the quality of your work, because you didn't do really anything other than present the central idea, and then AI wrote everything else out. You have to go back and look at it. Does this sound like me? Is this communicating what I needed to communicate as the subject matter expert? So the human in the loop is really an important part of that process, ultimately.
I think that's very important to remember too, is like, the first shot at it, you need to come back and reanalyze it, rework it, and ask it to do it in a different way, maybe in a different tone. I mean, it gives you tones, it gives you just the different nuances that sometimes I'll write something and I'll say, give it more of a lighter note, and it'll write something in a total lighter feeling about it. You can actually, when you're reading what was written, you feel lighter about it. I mean, it changes the whole nuance, the feeling of what is being done. So it's pretty amazing.
It really is. You take a little bit of time on the front end, because obviously you have to train the tool on your voice, how you sound, what words you use, what words you don't use, your writing style. You spend just a little bit of time training the tool on those details, and then it will output in your voice till the cows come home. It will, everything you put in there, it will output with your flair, with your style. You would look at it and go, oh my God, that sounds exactly like I had written it. And it'll be indiscriminate to what your voice is elsewhere, and so you really can train the tools, but it does take a little bit of time on the front end.
Absolutely. James, I love this conversation. We're gonna dive even more to it a little bit. I got a few more questions I want to ask you, because there's still some fears out there about AI.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I want to talk about a little bit about those. But before we do that, we're going to take a real quick break. We'll be right back to the Leader's Edge. Are you ready to elevate your organization with a team of transformational leaders? Do you want to attract and nurture top talent while enhancing communication and productivity across generations? Hi, I'm Steve Steele, co-host of The Leader's Edge, and your coach with the Maxwell Leadership Team. My program equips leaders with essential skills and resources to lead, coach, and communicate effectively, ensuring everyone thrives. With tailored insights and proven strategies, I'm here to help your entire organization succeed. So reach out today at growthinleadership@gmail.com or visit johncmaxwellgroup.com/Steve Steele. Hey everyone, welcome back to The Leader's Edge. I'm Steve Steele, your host, with our special guest today, AI strategist and specialist extraordinaire, James Hammer.
Hey.
James,
Wow, super excited.
Yeah, that was a great first section. I mean, I loved it. You kind of explained to us a little about what AI was and a little bit how to use it. But James, there's still some fear out there, and I think that some of the biggest fear is, what do we want to do to protect us as humans? And this is kind of a weird question, but what do we do to want to protect us as humans in the age of AI? Because the theory is that AI is going to take over everything. We're going to lose our jobs. Right. We're going to lose all kind of different just protocols, different things that should happen. We get it into the military. I mean, it's just crazy. Right. And there's a lot of fear out there. So what do we do to protect ourselves as humans from the age of AI?
Well, I think that, honestly, what we're going to find in the age of AI, that it's really more about self-awareness, about what you know about yourself. And every time you step into the arena with AI, you have to have a very clear picture of what you want out of the end product. We talk all the time that really our foundational course, which you can actually get if you hit the QR code here.
Yep.
You go to our website, and our foundational course is called Fusion Foundations. You can find it on atlaslearners.com, and it's there for you to be able to learn about your delegation style. And the course really is about you uncovering how you delegate. Ultimately, we're talking about technology. We're talking about technology that works a certain way, but we've never had a technology that pivots so significantly on how you work as an individual. As I talk to people, I say, look, we spend our lives adapting everything that we do to different software. Now we have a technology that takes all of those different tools and adapts them to us. So we can now work with our most organic sort of systems and processes and bring all of the different tools to us through our interaction with AI to get the tools to work the way we want them to work, as opposed to us having to adapt to countless different kind of software accounts and things that are there. So it really is going to help us interface with so many different platforms and systems so much more efficiently, and leaning into our tendencies rather than the expectations of these platforms and such. And so it's going to personalize things for us in ways that we could never have imagined. I spent the morning this morning with a teacher, essentially a couple hours, kind of teaching her how to work with the tools and do these kind of things. But ultimately, our subject matter expertise unlocks the superpower of artificial intelligence. It's just vast amounts of information until you bring your lived experience in line with it and start asking questions that are driven by how you see things, that then the tool reacts and begins to look at like a laser pointer at the specific things that you're wanting to find in the tool. So knowing what you want as you step into this, knowing yourself and how you delegate, that's what you're going to need to bring to the table to be able to effectively use these tools. And that Fusion Foundations course, that's a 7-module course. It's all about learning how you delegate so that you can apply those skills then to your use with AI.
Absolutely. And I want to make sure everybody understands, get that on the QR code. Just take a picture of it. It'll take you straight to the website. You can pick up everything you need there. So, James, I had a friend of mine I talked to the other day. We were talking about AI, and what she's scared of is she said, I'll be looking through Facebook and I don't know what's real and what's not real because It's so good. How can we tell James, if something is real or not real, especially on Facebook, if it's AI generated or if we know it's human created. I mean,
right.
Does that
I
make
think,
sense?
yeah, no, totally. And I think right now there are still visual tells. There are still visual tells in the media that lets you know this has got to be AI. And you look at consistency of movement. There are a ton of things that come into play, but ultimately, eventually, AI is going to get so good that we're not going to be able to tell the difference.
I know.
And ultimately,
And that
what we're
scares
going to have
people,
to
James. That
it
scares people.
it does. And what you're going to have to get really, really good at is understanding the source of the material. You look at the source of the video, if it contains people that you know, or it contains situations, if it seems like that's plausible, if it seems like that resonates with the type of platform or how these people talk or what they're trying to do, then you might feel like there's some legitimacy to it. But if you're seeing videos that are generated or the videos that show people doing things that like seem uncharacteristic or seem out of ordinary for them, I mean, you're going to have to become a much more of an expert of the sources of where these videos are coming from, rather than just taking everything at face value. We have a tendency to take everything at face value because for most of our lives, the idea of seeing is believing has always been the paradigm.
Right.
That's changing. And now it can no longer be seeing is believing. Now it's going to have to be sourcing is believing, understanding
I
where the
like
material
that.
comes from, who created the material, what's the purpose of the material, what's the message here, what are they trying to do? Really understanding those little variables in the whole experience is going to help people understand whether videos are valid. I mean, because at some point, we're no longer going to be able to tell visually whether or not something is real or AI. So we're really going to have to lean into the source material and checking those references.
Yeah, I mean, you can take a picture of yourself and run it through AI, and it enhances what you look like.
Right.
So,
And
so
it
is
has
that the real
variables.
me or not the real me?
Right.
I forget.
One of the images that I use most prolifically in all of my stuff is an AI generated image. I uploaded a handful of images of myself, and then it created like 60 versions in all kinds of different clothes and all kinds of,
Right. Same
like,
thing
I've
with
got these
me.
great. Right. And sometimes it looks like me. I picked the one that looked most like me and had some clothes. And I was like, yeah, I'd wear those clothes, But some of them don't quite look, they look like maybe my brother or a relative or an uncle or, so it's like
Yeah.
you have tons of things. And so that imagery is going to get better and better, and it's going to be harder and harder to tell. I think ultimately what we have to be able to do is understand how to pause when we encounter these things, to pause and think about, what is this video trying to get me to do? Or what is this interaction trying to get me to do in the moment? Is it trying to get me to act rashly based on a set of circumstances that is presenting to me as reality that may not be reality? And I'm thinking about particularly, grandparents who get phone calls from their grandchildren. I'm in jail. I need I need money. You need to send me money or whatever. There are scams out there that are like that
Oh,
target
yeah.
people, trying to get them to, when they're most vulnerable. You pick up the phone, something unexpected, but you need to stop and think, what are they trying to get me to do in the moment right now? And is that reasonable? Is it a reasonable expectation? Does this make sense? Do all the variables in play make sense? And I think we're going to have to become much more discerning about our intake of social media, even phone calls, video chats, all those kind of things. All of that is going to have to be scrutinized pretty significantly as we move forward.
Yeah, because we processed when we got cell phones and we got the internet, and all those different things. We processed those learning methods as we went through it, and this is just going to be another one of the same things. We're going to have to process how to learn it, what to look for, what is sourced by, the whole thing. So it's just going to get even more enhanced as we move forward. Am I right? I mean, so
absolutely.
Okay. So James, let's talk about some of the different platforms of AI. What are some of the things? I know which one you love to use. We'll talk about that because we're going to talk about the project that we're working on. But to talk about some other platforms and what they're best used for.
Right. Well, we discovered, in fact, through when Christy Pepperdine was with us during Speak to Lead, we discovered that Notebook LM creates these great infographics. I ran a couple of slide presentations through Notebook LM this morning, and wow, just primo quality text. And and text is one of those things that AI is kind of sketchy about. When you do image generation, the text in the images isn't quite right. There are lots of issues, but Notebook LM creates
It is.
great visual representations of what you're talking about or what the resources are or whatever. It creates great visual representation, so that's really good at that. Claude, which is my preferred tool, Claude AI, does great with language. Anything language related, it does fantastic. Proposals, it even creates presentations, PowerPoints, HTML. It doesn't do image generation, so it's not a tool that generates images. But I think that we'll find more and more that we'll choose several different tools in our repertoire rather than just one tool that we go to. So I've used Copilot, I've used Gemini, I've used ChatGPT. My favorite is Claude.ai. For me, Claude is like Jarvis from the Iron Man movies. That's
Mhm.
what my interaction with Claude reads like in just about every experience that I've had. And so Perplexity is much more like a search-based engine than some of the other tools. People are using AI a lot for what they used to do Google searches for. So what I'm in
Right.
a process right now is figuring out, how do we optimize SEO, all those keywords and all those kind of things with AI, like we did with search engines. There's got to be some optimization or something that comes into play that helps your business or your company appear in AI searches just like it does. So I'm kind of working on that problem right now and trying to sort of figure out, as people are using that tool, what do they need to know about those search engine components that are a part of that. So there's so many different facets to what these tools can do, and just I've just named a few in the process, but you can go out there, about throw a rock and hit some AI application. But here's the thing, there are almost 50,000 tools in the marketplace. 50,000 tools, all these different apps that do all kinds of different things. And I'm going to tell you from experience, 90% of what those apps do, those 50,000 some odd apps, 90% of what they can do can be done with a large language model if you know what you're doing. So it's
Oh
not
yeah.
about it's about finding the right tool for you. You don't necessarily have to go find a bunch of tools to do. Like I work primarily in Claude and get about 95% of my work done in there without any problems at all. But you'll find, and I tell people, you're going to use multiple tools. You're going to use them for multiple different purposes. No one will use the same tool for the exact same purpose in the exact same way. And the worst thing a business leader, a business owner, or a corporate entity can do is mandate how its employees, what tools they're going to use and how they're going to use them. Obviously, you need to use them for your business in certain ways, but that's where the innovation happens, is when people have an opportunity to explore and discover and find out what the different tools can do and what works best for them and their prompting and working style and their workflows.
James, is there any AI tools out there right now that integrate with each other? In other words, can Notebook LM, the slides of product, or say you're building a PowerPoint with Notebook LM, can you insert that into Claude and Claude will work with that? Do they integrate at all?
Yeah. It's on several different layers. The ecosystem is being built up where we have what they call API keys, and it's kind of a technical thing, but essentially the API key lets a platform talk to another platform securely. So essentially, you can create, and most platforms are developing API keys so that different tools can interact with their platform and create what their clients ultimately want them to create. But those API keys allow different tools to talk to each other across the internet in that space. And so as we move forward, we're going to find that more and more. I wouldn't be surprised if eventually we create agentic tools that go out into the internet, find other tools out on the internet, and work and build
Wow.
out on the internet in real time. I think that's eventually
Wow.
where we're going to be, where you will essentially deploy tools to the internet to go and find other tools that will work with it to create certain products or certain experiences or whatever the case may be. So I feel like that kind of feels like eventually what's going to happen. They've got entire ecosystems with just AI agents working and talking to each other.
Mhm.
These are several examples of that. Brain Rot Research is an Instagram account where these AI agents have hired a human to be their face. And so the account is the human talking to the AIs, talking to us about what the AIs are asking him to do. It's an interesting sort of ecosystem that's been put together, but AIs are absolutely running the show in that particular experience. And so it's kind of interesting where we're going to go and what we're going to end up be doing. There's enough to be scared about, but I think as long as we are determining, and I think every person individually has to do this, we have to individually determine that we're going to use these tools for the good of others, that we're going to use them in ethical ways, in responsible ways, in ways that benefit humanity, because there are going to be plenty of people, believe me, who will not use the tools in that way, who will use the tools to proliferate scams, to get better at proliferating scams. They already are. And so we have to decide as business leaders, as individuals, that we're going to use these tools for the good of humanity, for the good of others, for the good of other businesses, and ultimately for the good of our business to help others. And so we have to make that distinction and make that determination in real time that that's how we're going to use these tools, because there are going to be plenty of people who aren't.
Wow. I guess that's part of the scary part too, is like,
right.
Who can we trust? Who can we actually trust? And so you're really going to have to dig in. You're really going to have to know what we're doing and who we're doing it with. And you're really going to have to know the platform that you're working on too, because I know that Claude is the platform you work with. And I absolutely love Claude for what it can do. And it's just pretty amazing. And Notebook LM, I've created slides in Notebook LM, and they do a fantastic job. And the great thing about it is, if you don't like what you see, you can go back and rephrase it or rework it, and it'll produce it again. And just the way that you want it to be.
Exactly. We were working in Notebooks. Yeah, we were working in Notebook LM this morning, and I was taking this teacher through different slides. I was like, you can modify this slide, but also in that particular menu, you can modify every slide in the deck and then hit regenerate and recreate the whole slide based on the feedback you gave for every single slide in the deck. And so where we used to have to fix things one piece at a time, and it used to be so laborious and so monotonous and so repetitive. Now we can wholesale make changes and not disturb the product, the whole product in the experience, and that particularly relates to, I know we're coming down to another commercial break, and we'll probably talk about what we've been doing afterwards.
Yeah.
But it definitely comes down to the work that we've been doing, the stuff we've been doing with the Make Up Your Mind curriculum. We built it up, we stripped it down, we rebuilt it up, and we did all of that with artificial intelligence. And so the idea that these tools can, and think about, Steve, what we initially created and the process we initially went through and the stripping down and the rebuilding. How long would that have taken in a normal kind of experience? How long would that have taken before artificial intelligence? We'd have been working on that for weeks making those edits, and we were able to do them in just a matter of minutes, and really have it be viable work, and real quality work that we were doing. And so that's the astounding factor of the whole experience, is that it just amplifies what you do and how you use it in very very powerful ways. But you have to understand how you're using it and what you want out of the product ultimately. So knowing yourself, I think we talked about earlier, what's the key for the age of AI? Knowing yourself. Ultimately, that's where you're going to be successful in working with artificial intelligence. The more you know about yourself and your own processes.
Yeah. Well, James, that's a beautiful segue to where we're going next. So we're going to talk about a little bit of the project that we're working on and how we actually started. I want to strip it down, take them through the process of what we did, and just kind of talk about that. But for that, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back to the Leader's Edge.
Sounds good.
All right, podcasters, let's be honest for a second. If your show sounds like it was recorded inside of a tin can, in your cousin's basement, in a van down by the river with your dog barking in the background, it's time for an upgrade. That's where 216 Creator Studios comes in, the home of real production, real people who actually know what all those shiny buttons do. They've got pro mics, top-tier editing, and lighting that makes everyone look like they slept 8 hours, even if you didn't. Whether you're just starting out or you've been podcasting since people were still saying, smash that like button, give me a thumbs up, 216 Creator Studio helps you sound crisp, confident, and ready for the big leagues. So stop recording in your car, stop arguing with your USB mic, and get into 216 Creator Studios, where your podcast finally sounds as good as you think it does.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Leader's Edge. I'm Steve Steele, your host, with our special guest today, James Hammer. Wow, James.
Hey.
It's a lot of information. I know a lot of people are getting a lot of stuff, and we've talked about a lot of different things, but we're going to talk about a project that I brought to you, I would say a month ago, maybe. And now I want people to understand. You said, well, listen, why is it taking a month? Well, James, we've only met about a couple hours each time. If you were to spend an entire day on this thing, you could probably wrap out this whole program within a day or two. I mean, just the way that it is. But I came to you and I asked you, I told us I wanted to put a program together. And I didn't even have the title at the time. I was thinking the title here and there, but it wasn't titles really really matched what we wanted to do. But so I came to you about a program, and I wanted to take a lot of neuroscience, terminology, facts, and things I've studied, and resources that I've found, and resources that I've written, and I want to apply that to actually create a blended curriculum that reinforced the science, was reinforced by biblical truth. Because I know, because I'm a man of faith, the biblical truth has had it right this whole time, and science is just now figuring it out. So I wanted to take the two and blend them together. And I'm telling you what, James, we came out with something pretty amazing. And I think I've passed it by a lot of people. I know that you have. And there's some people going like, wow, we've not seen that before. Or that's amazing how that's come out. So, James, tell us a little bit. I mean, I came to you with this project. What do we do first? Just break it down. Share with our audience exactly the steps that we took to move forward in this curriculum.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, curriculum development is really special to me because as an educator, I've been doing it for a very long time. And so the opportunity to step into this space where, you've got an idea and some concepts that really resonate with me, also as a person of faith, I love that idea, to be able to step in and clarify things for people in such a way that we make complex problems very simple to solve. And so the idea, when you came with the initial idea, you were like, okay, well, we've got all this sort of leadership information and this idea of what keeps us from being most effective as leaders is this decision-making process and how we get trapped in this loop. Yeah. And I think that we literally built in our first session, we built an entire workbook and then a teacher's edition of the material so that you could present that. Well, then we looked at that and we said, this is great stuff, but it's all someone else's stuff. It was all stuff that was supported what you were talking about and ultimately what you wanted to do. But it was branded in someone else's
intellectual like someone else's stuff. It wasn't the feeling of it wasn't like it was me. It was like it was the resources that I pulled from this particular resource and this particular resource and that particular resource, pulled them all together. Now the resources that come from scripture, that's just that. That's everybody's, right? That's everybody's. That's everybody's domain. Yeah. So, but these other pieces, I didn't want it to sound like anybody else. I wanted it to sound like me and what I was teaching. But there's not, there's very little original in this world. But the thing about it is that you have to get resources where you're learning from. So I take these resources and try to put them together. And I wanted to put a 90-minute masterclass together on this, right? So we built this workbook and we built this teacher's edition.
Right. So the goal was to be able to teach this material. But like you said, and the resources, the material came from great places. John Maxwell, David Bayer. I mean, people who've really been foundational in developing our understanding of decision-making in the business sector. And so when we looked at all that, it was like, this is great. But anybody coming to this workshop is going to say, well, it's obvious Steve borrowed all this information from these other people, So where are the original thoughts? And that's where, because you came with a very original idea, a very original concept of being able to make these decisions based on sort of biblical foundation, sort of a biblical decision-making process. And all of these sort of secular resources really reinforced that, but they were all of these other resources and didn't really speak with your voice. And so when we got the product, we got the workbook, we got the teacher's edition, I think we were both struck by that the idea was we really needed something that sounded and that its core was intellectual property that came from you.
Yes.
And so we took that, everything, we kind of stripped it all down to a spine of this
Absolutely.
biblical decision-making process. And then, remember that session we came back to after that, we both talked about just how sparse that was. It was just,
Yeah.
literally was just the spine of the workbook and the conversation. But then we began through our conversations with Claude to be able to put the pieces back onto the spine, to put the muscles back on the skeletal structure, to put the epidermis back on the, so we started building it then from scratch from that spine that we deconstructed everything down to. And that was an amazing process of just simply saying, we don't want it to look so much like this. What are the true unique perspectives that are in Steve's spine here that we can bounce off of and that build from and work as a foundation? And that's ultimately, that process where the AI came into great, it brought us the CABI study that essentially.
Oh yeah, I remember that. And that was original. I didn't know anything about that before. That wasn't my resource.
An interesting study that came in that we didn't know about, but as we were talking about how our brains change and neuroplasticity, that idea that the hippocampus would change its size based on the amount of knowledge that a cabbie had about the 26,000 some odd streets in London. That was fascinating.
It was beautiful.
Actual proof that our brain size changes as we learn. Fascinating stuff. But we would have never known that as we were rebuilding the curriculum without artificial intelligence saying, hey, there's a study here that proves this point.
Exactly. Yeah, and that was absolutely beautiful. And that's when, for me, it came alive. That's what, for me, when that study came out, it was like something I've never heard of before. And even though it was out there, AI was able to take that study and apply it to this particular framework that we're building. And that's when things really became alive for me. And I really began to understand, wow, what is this thing is actually doing? What is actually happening?
Right. And we ended up with, we built the entire system that you have now, the Make Up Your Mind, Participants Workbook, and the Teacher's Workbook. We built all that through 8 conversations.
Yep.
We had 8 specific conversations with Claude, built the whole curriculum out of those 8 conversations, refined it in those 8 conversations. And then, that's how it works. You have these conversations, you refine the product through your back and forth with the machine. And ultimately that's what creates the really great product. And people talk about it, well, it's just diminishes your quality, diminishes your ability. I feel like my work with AI makes me much more rigorous in writing than not using AI, because I really have to pay attention to the creative side of things. AI takes care of the cognitive load of like punctuation and grammar and all that kind of stuff, so that I don't have to think about that as a writer anymore. I just think about creatively, what do I want to say and how do I want to say it? And then I let the tool do all the technical work in the process.
Yeah, I think I asked you that
much
question.
More rigorous creatively.
Yeah, I think I asked you that question a conversation ago when we were working on it. I said, do I have to put in, like, when I'm typing into AI, and I'm telling it what it to do I have to put in the punctuations and capital letters on it? And you went, no, you don't have to do that. AI reads right through that.
Right. They just look at words, they look at word meanings, and then they look at the probability of what would be the best answer for what you're looking for. And again, the more you've trained the machine to think like you, to process like you, the more likely it's going to come up with the same kind of conclusions that you want it to come up with in the process that you're working on.
Okay, so we built this workbook and teacher's edition. I want to just make sure everybody understands it's a teacher's guide too. So there's a teacher's guide to it, and then the workbook's based off the teacher's guide, and it's the same flow. Everything's exactly the same. It just gives you the teacher's guide of how to teach it and what to say. Right. It gives you some of the prompts of what to say, some of the scripts of what to say. So it's absolutely beautiful. Then what did I come to you and say what I wanted to do? I wanted to put it into a coaching program.
Right. We wanted to break it down into a 6-week coaching program and put all that material and everything. And so, taking the modules that we've built and all the stuff that we've built so far, and then breaking that out into a 6-week, that's really super easy to do, because AI will pick up on what makes the most sense for each week of the process. Patterns, roadmaps, outlines, all that. These tools are great at creating an understanding of those particular organizational structures of what you're looking at, and it'll do it out of pretty dense data. You have to kind of piece it out a little bit, maybe not do too much, because we talked about that too. You put too much
Yeah.
in, and the
Mhm.
tool will get confused about what you really want it to accomplish. So you start to think about, well, how can I break this down into the most digestible parts so that I can get the results that I want in process. And so it's very much about, adapting your style, understanding what the tool does. It's really, like we said, it's a very collaborative process that creates then the results of ultimately what you want. You and I could have sat down and looked at that material and said, okay, well, it makes sense for this to be week 1, or this to be week 2, this to be week 3, but we would have had to sat down and poured over the whole thing, figured out
Yep.
how do we break this up into sections, and a tool like Claude can do that in minutes, as opposed to the time that it would take you and I to both go through it and sort of delineate all the divisions and all that stuff. But again, that's an example of the kind of things that AI can do that leave you to all the creative stuff that then builds the content in the first place.
James, do you remember some of the prompts you told AI to do when we took the 90-minute masterclass and said we want to turn it into a 6-week coaching program? Because I know what we have now. We don't have the whole coaching program done yet, but we've got the layout of how Claude suggests, not that we have to do it, but suggests of how it should be done, right? So do you remember some of those what you told AI to do?
Right. Now, well, one of the interesting things were, and I did this primarily with the supplemental material that you sent me. And the supplemental material had a lot of stuff that was still from some of those previous brands that we had pulled things from. And so ultimately, like I said, like the whole sequence was much like this. I said, I just uploaded additional material and an email that provides instructions for using the supplemental material. So you had sent me some of those materials. I said, I just uploaded it to Claude. I uploaded the email that you sent. I uploaded the materials. I said, this is what we want to do. It went through and said, this is what's going on. This is what the materials have. And it flagged again that there was material there from other intellectual property, and that we needed to be careful about making sure we weren't leaning too heavily on that.
But we don't want to lean on it. Yeah.
Right. So then I asked, as supplemental material that supports the conclusion, are they damaging? So I essentially wanted to know that if this supplemental material was included, would it damage the credibility of the overall content we had created? You don't know that, because you're talking about that from an audience perspective, from the perspective of someone who's going to absorb this material. Is it going to be a significant enough of a disconnect that's going to make them feel like they need to push back against the whole experience?
Yeah.
And ultimately, the answer was, yeah, possibly. So we needed to figure out, we had a conversation. I said, okay, nuts and bolts. Can we modify the content to give a nod to the source material, but remove the realignment with the older paradigms? Because the thing that Claude was concerned about in including some of those supplemental materials is that we were going to pull our audience back to aligning with some old paradigms that we got rid of when we stripped the structure down to the spine and built new paradigms on it. And so I said, so can we give it a nod to this, but not necessarily ask the audience to completely realign to what we're doing? And so, we went through that whole process. And then we went and it drafted the things, and ultimately said, I don't want to redraft all of the course materials until we find a final product. But what's the benefit of certain aspects? So it was a whole conversation. And literally, if you look at it, it is just back and forth. My part of the conversation is very short. I'm just asking very succinct questions. It's the Socratic method applied to artificial intelligence. You ask questions to get to the results that you want ultimately. Absolutely. So I'm asking questions about the impact that these have into that process. And then eventually I said, well, let's lean into this particular approach. Let's build the 6-week build out of the material, and then we'll figure out what other things we need to add to it. So it literally was a conversation back and forth about, this is new material. How does it align with the old material? How does it make, the user, does it create dissonance with the user? Because I'm always thinking about things from the audience perspective, as a person experiencing these materials. If I'm going to encounter this particular mindset, is it going to interfere with the mindset I tried to establish with the larger content that I taught in the process? results about how much of an influence does a certain mentality have with a bigger picture. These are things we would have never been able to do
Right.
looking at content and making those kind of determinations
Exactly.
just at a glance, but we can do them now with these tools. It's absolutely fascinating.
It is fascinating. And we we did the master classes phase 1. The phase 2 is going to be the 6-week coaching program. And phase 3, we're going to do an asynchronous online where we can actually sell the product online, do videos with it and that kind of thing. So it's pretty amazing what's taking place here. James, man, thank you so much for today. Wow. What a lot of crazy stuff. So real quick, we got about 2 or 3 minutes here. James, how can people get a hold of you and, tell us what you're doing?
Right, absolutely. Well, you can, connect on that QR code. It'll get you to our website. You can connect there for information. You can also email me. My email is super easy: hammer@mentalforge.media. We've got the 2 websites, mentalforge.ai, which primarily focuses on our training material, which really is what we're really trying to get into the market right now. That training level, everybody should be watching. They need training. Where to go? If they don't know, most other courses out there are going to give you a certificate and a pat on the back. Here, you're up to speed now. You know what you need to know. Okay. Our course gives you over 50 deliverables in the process, templates, experiences, things that you can then take and save and use while you're developing your protocols with the tools long term. So it's not just hey, this is what this software is all about. You're up to speed now, but it's, hey, here's what you're all about. Here's how you delegate. Here's how you're best going to use these tools. Here are all of the resources for you to be able to apply this process to the tools you're going to use. And so ultimately, that's what the differentiator is for us in our training and everything, is that we ultimately want to help people understand how they work so they can better understand how they work with the tools ultimately.
Absolutely.
And so you can get a hold of the website, send me an email. We've got a ton of opportunity. We can customize things. If you've got an organization, if you've got a business and you want to figure out how to bring this training to your workforce, we can certainly do that. That's a possibility. But we adapt training all the time. We work on training pieces all the time. And so, ultimately we want to help people understand that clarity of function. How do you use these tools? And so provide them with as many resources as we can.
Wow. Thank you so much, James. I greatly appreciate your time today being on the show. Just amazing, amazing. Hey, everyone, something different's happening. I've never had a show like I'm going to have next week. Are you stuck in a cycle of thinking that there is no good options out there, or feeling overwhelmed about dating apps or modern romance? With Donna Metter's leadership at smartdivas.com coaching, she's going to shift from doubt to confidence, attracting right connections and enjoying the dating process with ease. Wow, I'm really fascinated about this show. It's going to be great. And as a reminder, you can find The Leader's Edge on Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. If you find the value in this conversations today, hit that subscribe button or follow and stay connected. And I want to say thank you to all of our listeners and friends, because without you, The Leader's Edge would not be possible. And I'm so grateful to have you here and so excited to connect with you next time. Bye, everyone.